What is up, everybody? It's RJ Kelly here, back for night 4 of 13 straight days of wrestling for WrestleMania week. And tonight, this was a doozy. Probably the best night so far that we've had. NXT Takeover Night 1 of Stand and Deliver, which was a fantastic show top to bottom, as well as AEW Dynamite, which was another very good show, very newsworthy show. But I predict that it will not do well in the ratings compared against this TakeOver show. Two incredibly good shows tonight. TakeOver really pulling out all the stops for their final Wednesday night run. And these two shows were pretty long, so I'll just hop right into it. So NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. Very, very good show, as I said. It opened with the guitarist for Alice Cooper, I believe her name was. I don't remember her name. But she did a rendition of the national anthem on guitar. That was very, very cool. The pre-show match was Zoe Stark versus Toni Storm on the YouTube pre-show. That was a really solid match. They've been doing a lot of stuff with Zoe Stark lately on NXT. Putting her with all the top of the card wrestlers and giving her a shot, giving her like a nice little push, making her like one of the elevated secondary talent. So really cool they gave her a shot, and she actually pinned Toni Storm here. So she's been just losing to everybody, but she actually picks up a big win. So maybe she'll get a title shot. They'll push her, and she'll get maybe the first crack at Raquel, which is pretty cool. Very, very good match. Zoe's really solid in the ring. Tony's a great wrestler, so they work really, really well together, and she, kind of an upset fluky pin. She kind of cradled her and pinned her out of nowhere, so good match. Really solid win for her. Nita Strauss is the girl's name that played the national anthem on guitar. The opener on NXT TakeOver was Pete Dunne versus Kushida. An excellent, excellent, excellent match. I knew they would have a great match together. A lot of submission work back and forth. Dunne going for the fingers, the small joint manipulation, the working the arms over and stuff like that. And Kushida, of course, his finisher is the hoverboard lock, that Kimura. So he works the arm the whole time. So a lot of really cool stuff there. And a lot of really hard-hitting stuff, because both guys are really hard-hitting wrestlers. So this was incredibly fast-paced, incredibly exciting, very dramatic, a lot of great counters. Kushida did a running kick on the ramp. They had the elevated ramp that went straight to the ring, and he went all the way back to the beginning of the entranceway and did this big, long run all the way up and kicked the guy and kicked Pete Dunne's arm. They had a bunch of strike exchanges, elbows back and forth, and Kushida hit the big punch, and they both went down. Dunne eventually targeted the fingers, started working those over, doing the finger break spots, targeting, working over the hand, and Kushida went to hit the punch again. He hit it, but hurt his hand in the process. Dunne was able to capitalize, hit an enziguri, and then the bitter end, and pick up the win. So really big win for Pete Dunne. I thought for sure they'd give Kushida the win, but I guess they have plans for Pete Dunne. So really, really cool. These two can have a best of 10 series, best of 7 series. They can wrestle as many times as they want to, as far as I'm concerned. Really, really solid match. Next up was the Gauntlet Eliminator match with Leon Ruff, Isaiah Swerve Scott, Bronson Reed, Cameron Grimes, Dexter Lumis, and LA Knight. I was watching the USA feed, so apparently this started during the break. Swerve and Ruff just started brawling because we came back from commercial and they were just in the ring fighting. No entrances, no nothing. This was a solid match. I talked about this on my preview last night. The last Eliminator match they did had like Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly and Kushida, and it was just all action. It was an incredible match going back and forth. This one was a lot like more angle focused. There was some good stuff at the end once they kind of got a lot of they trimmed the fat, if you will, from the match. But just kind of weird, and just kind of waiting for everybody to get in. Yeah, no, I mean, nothing really too exciting happened. A lot of stuff going back and forth. Reed entered the match and kind of powered everybody around. Cameron Grimes came down and he bribed Swerve Scott. He took out money and gave it to him to help him beat up Leon Ruff. That was pretty funny. So Swerve took the bribe and they beat down Ruff. Loomis joined the match and did this slow walk to the ring, which was very weird. And LA Knight came out cutting a promo. Everybody was down at that point, so he came out cutting a promo and walked to the ring, and it was actually really funny. On his way down, he kicked Bronson Reed, who was laying on the stage, and he's cutting his promo. He has the mic up by his face, and he's like, and this is LA Knight, and cutting his promo. And Reed grabs him by the hair, and he goes, into the mic. That was really funny. Loomis had somebody in the silence, his head and arm choke, and it got reversed somehow, and Knight came off the ropes and kind of cradled Loomis while he had him in the choke and eliminated him. And then shortly thereafter, LA Knight was eliminated. So I have no idea what they're doing with LA Knight. They gave him the flashy new name, the entrance, the big debut at the last takeover, and I don't really know what their plan is for him. Eventually, it goes down to Grimes, Reed, and Swerve. Really good three-way stuff with those guys because they all have fantastic chemistry. They're all really, really good together. Scott eliminated Grimes. They were both trying to do the roll-up with the tights, and Swerve just happened to roll him up and pull the tights and pin him. And then Reed and Swerve had a really good back and forth. It looked like Swerve was going to win. He was just hitting big move after big move, slam after slam. That house call kick that he does, the jumping back kick, he hit that a couple times, just could not put Reed away. And then finally Reed hit a big power bomb, hit a air raid crash, and then the big tsunami top rope splash to win. So thank goodness they did not go with what I thought was going to happen with Dexter Loomis, and it was Bronson Reed. My pick to win. I think I said this on Twitter earlier too. My heart said Bronson Reed, but my mind said Dexter Loomis. So thank goodness they didn't do that angle. They're going to transition away from that because they realized that it was just getting too corny. So Bronson Reed versus Johnny Gargano tomorrow should be an excellent match and probably a title change. You could keep it on Gargano and then build up other challengers. There's plenty of guys in this match. But, I mean, Reed's been doing a great job lately. He's very over, so I say why not. The next match was what everybody came to see. I don't know if anything's going to top this the whole weekend under the WWE umbrella. Walter defending the NXT UK Championship against Tommaso Ciampa. Really, really, really great match. Go out of your way to see this. It was so good. It told a great story. It was brutal. It was exciting. Some of the near falls were great. It was hard hitting. Just an excellent, excellent match. They did a spot on the outside. Walter's beating him up, and he throws him outside the ring, and he lays Ciampa out on the announce table, and he spreads him out, and he goes to deliver this big chop to Ciampa's chest, but Ciampa moves out of the ring, out of the way, and he slaps the announce table, and the board covering the top of it breaks in half, and there's this big dent down the middle where Walter's arm went. That was so cool. That was so awesome. So for the rest of the match, he sold the hand, and this happens a lot in Walter matches, and it makes sense, because, he chops you to death. That's his whole thing. So hurt his arm so he can't chop you to death. So that played into the story, and plus Ciampa does arm bars anyway, so he worked over the right arm of Walter. Walter still maintained control, just killed him, hit him with boots, and grounding him, slamming him. Ciampa makes a comeback, and unfortunately on the USA feed they cut to picture-in-picture during this, but I was laughing my ass off. So Ciampa makes his comeback, and he hits a big clothesline, and he's just clotheslining Walter. They're just initially just like short. He just takes a couple steps back and then comes forward, boom, clothesline. Takes a couple steps back, boom, he hits him with like 3 or 4 of those. Then he starts getting a running start. Bounces off the ropes, boom, clothesline. Bounce off the ropes, boom, clothesline. He does like 15 clotheslines to Walter. Walter's not going down. He's just taking them and taking them. They cut to commercial, and the picture-in-picture, it's just boom, clothesline, boom, clothesline, boom, clothesline. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he hits the clothesline, he goes back, bounces off the ropes, comes in front of the one. Walter just, boom, chops him, and Ciampa goes down. Such a good spot. And then Ciampa fires up after that, and then hits him with a clothesline and finally takes him down. Really good, like, it's just so good. There's so much stuff here. He hit the fairy tale ending on Walter after a really good back and forth, where Walter backdropped him out of it, but Ciampa maintained the butterfly grip, and then they fought back up to their feet, and he finally hit it. That was really cool. They eventually had a chop fight back and forth. Ciampa hitting Walter, and Walter couldn't really fight back because his right hand was all messed up and his right arm was all messed up. So he started chopping with the left hand. And eventually, Walter gets him in a sleeper, hits a sleeper suplex. Ciampa gets up, and then Walter, with the bad arm, the right arm, rears back one last chop, chops Ciampa, and wins with a chop. Which is awesome because, like, think about all the matches Walter's had so far. They've all ended differently. There's been a different finish in every match. He beat Pete Dunne with a top rope splash. He beat Tyler Bate with a lariat. He's beaten guys with a power bomb. He's beaten guys with the choke. And now he wins with a chop. It's so great that he won with a chop. It's just so cool. A little underwhelming. Like, he hit it and I was like, that's it. Like, after all of that, a chop. But, I mean, if you think about the story of the match, with the whole match being built around chops and Walter's arm and trying to prevent that one big right-hand chop from landing and caving in Ciampa, for him to finally gather all of his strength and save up for that one last shot at the end really was a good story, I think. Really good match. Like I said, put this on the list. Go back and watch this. Go back and see this if you haven't. Really, really fantastic match. Next match was a three-way tag match for the vacant NXT Tag Team titles. The winners of the Dusty Classic, MSK, Wesley, and Nash Carter, versus the Grizzled Young Veterans, James Drake and Zach Gibson, versus Legado del Fantasma, Joaquin Wilde, and Raul Mendoza. I tuned out a little bit during this match. After the Walter Ciampa, I was spent. But this is pretty crazy. They did like 1,000 moves, as you would expect from these guys. Legado del Fantasma is a great team. They did some crazy stunts in this match. MSK, the former Rascals, they are incredibly creative. Did a lot of crazy stuff. Dives everywhere. Just a lot to keep up with. But the big turning point in the match was the Grizzled Young Vets and MSK. They separate Legado del Fantasma. MSK has one. Grizzled Young Vets have the other. GYV hits a doomsday device off of... Drake runs off the stage and hits the one guy who was on Gibson's shoulders. They take him out. MSK on the outside, on the other side of the ring, they have the guy in a torture rack, and the one guy comes off the top rope with a double stomp to the guy while he's in the torture rack, and then they drop him on the floor. So they take them out. So now it's down to MSK and GYV. They have a really great brawl, and eventually they pin, I believe, Drake with the heart attack blockbuster move. Have him set up like that, and then hit a blockbuster. Really good match. Really, really solid. I'm probably gonna go back and rewatch this one with a little bit of fresh eyes, probably tomorrow at some point. But a crazy spot fest, super fast paced, 1,000 moves, stuff going on everywhere. But really, really solid match. Nothing looked sloppy. Everything looked really good. And MSK, as I predicted, as they should have, won the tag team titles here. So really, really great for them. The current reigning PWG Tag Team Champions are now the NXT Tag Team Champions. So that's pretty cool for them as well. So really good match. I'm excited that they're the tag champs. And then finally, the main event, the NXT Women's Champion Io Shirai defends against Raquel Gonzalez. Very good match here, and again, this told a really good story too. So Raquel is much bigger than Io. She's been booked as a powerhouse. She pinned Io at War Games. Once again, I think I'm the only person that remembers this. That she actually got the pin over Io, and then they just forgot about it. Raquel helped Dakota win the Dusty Rhodes Women's Tag Team Classic. They were the first women's tag team champions. Raquel beat Rhea Ripley in the last woman standing to send her out of NXT. So, a lot of stuff for Raquel, a lot of momentum for her. They've built her up really well, like a monster. And Io has been champion for over 300 days, beaten everybody, ran through the whole division, cleaned everybody out. So both of them have been built up really big, and so they played the match like that. Raquel used her power, threw Io around, took advantage, controlled her, but Io used her just, explosiveness and high flyingness, her speed, to kind of outmaneuver Raquel and get the advantage. And the second half of this match, Io was just dominating. It was just like big move after big move. They went up to the ramp, and Io hit a running Meteora, like ran down the entire ramp and hit a double knees. A lot of crazy moves for this one. I believe Io hit a dive to Raquel off the turnbuckle onto the ramp, and then she climbed up to the top of the set. They had this gigantic skull on the entranceway. It's probably 15, 20 feet high, and Io did this big giant leap off of it and just smashed Raquel on the ground. And they landed really. Io landed really hard, and she landed on like the grating of the entrance. That looked really brutal. But she was just she was just beating the hell out of Raquel, and then eventually they get into the ring. Io hits the moonsault, but Raquel kicks out of the moonsault, so you got your WrestleMania near fall there, kicking out of the finisher, which I liked because nobody's kicked out of that, and they made that a very poignant part. Like, nobody's kicked out of this moonsault yet, and Raquel eventually recovers and hits the one-arm powerbomb and pins her. So it was a little quick, just like boom, 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 and she wins after taking all of that punishment, and just one powerbomb did it. Like, you could have had her kick out and then like hit like the Omega finisher, the special finisher. Like Hiromu has the time bomb, but to put away like really tough people, he uses the time bomb too. You could have busted out a new move, like a super choke slam, or just maybe hit two in a row, like boom, and then pick her up and then hit another one or something. But she hit the powerbomb, and Raquel wins. So Raquel is the new NXT Women's Champion. Really cool for her, because I remember when they brought her in, they had a lot of hopes for her, and they hyped her up really big, and you heard a lot about her, being from Texas. She had that awful gear when she debuted, the chaps, the cowboy chaps, and when she was Reina Gonzalez in the Mae Young Classic. And even then, they were pushing her as like a basketball star, and everything. Back when like every woman that they debuted, they had one fact, and that's all you got. You didn't get any other personality. You get like one fact, and they just hammered that home. So it's really cool that they were able to rebrand her and give her this new persona. Just about a year ago, right? It was TakeOver Portland when she debuted and helped Dakota Kai beat Tegan Nox. And she was just a heavy for Dakota Kai for the longest time, while Dakota was getting all the big title matches, getting all the big title shots, feuding with Tegan, and eventually started breaking out on her own and doing her own thing. And like I said, having the feud with Rhea Ripley, losing to Rhea Ripley initially, I think she lost to Rhea Ripley. I don't remember exactly when, but they had a big match and she lost, and then they had the rematch in the last woman standing and she won finally, and then that just snowballed from there, winning War Games, winning the Dusty Classic, looking like a monster, pinning Io multiple times. And like, she has a good look. She's good in the ring. All of her stuff looks good. Her timing is good. She's not slow. She's not plodding. It doesn't look like she's behind the eight ball in the ring. Like, she looks like she's in control. And granted, it's against Io Shirai, who's like one of the top 5, 10 best women's wrestlers in the entire world. But a lot of that credit does go to Raquel for being able to do that. Being big, not being the traditional like women's wrestler that they have there. Being a bigger person, being more of a powerhouse, and being able to use that to her advantage. It's really cool. And now she's the NXT Women's Champion. That opens up a world of possibilities. Um, if you take a look at the last couple NXT Women's Champions, you've had Io, who, like, high flyer, exciting Japanese style matches. Charlotte, who was there for a cup of coffee. Rhea, who was there for a cup of coffee. Before that, it was Shayna for like 2 whole years. And with Shayna, it was like you had to do a Shayna Baszler match, which was a lot of submission work, a lot of MMA, a lot of striking, a lot of selling, her working the arm and you selling. So that was really limiting in the kind of match you could do. Kairi only had the title for a couple months as well, but Kairi was the same kind of style as Io Shirai, high flying, Japanese style, exciting. Before that, Ember only had the title for about 2 months. Before that, Asuka had the title for a long time, and that dates back to 2016, April 2016, when she won it from Bayley. And Asuka was a little bit more of like not one size fits all. Like, she could do any kind of match. She had different kind of matches with everybody, like Ember and Nikki Cross, just to name 2 people. So you haven't really had a champion like this, and maybe Raquel holds the title for 2 months and she's only going to have it for a cup of coffee, but you haven't had a champion like this and a wrestler like this in a very long time, holding the NXT Women's Championship and being on the top of that mountain. Rhea was the closest one, but Rhea only had it for a few months. She won it in December and then lost it at WrestleMania. And in the meantime, she had like a half feud with Bianca, which wasn't even really a feud because Charlotte won the Royal Rumble, and you started building that in January. So Rhea only really got to do her own thing for about a month before you started building to Charlotte, and she never really got to have the title and, have that presence as the champion and establish her reign and her style and everything. So you haven't really had anybody like this for 5 years. If you can believe that, 5 years we have not had somebody bringing something new to the women's division. And Raquel, I mean, not to beat her drum so much, like, I'm not a stan for her. I don't love, like, she's not my favorite women's wrestler in NXT, but there's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of cool things you can do to her, and there's a lot of growing she still can do as a performer. She has this powerhouse gimmick, but can she add a new dynamic to her offense? Can she add a different dynamic to her character? A lot of that can be opened up now, for sure, and it's really exciting to see. And as far as Io goes, you got to think she's going to the main roster. And on the main roster, there's plenty of things she can do. Asuka and Io, Sasha and Io, Bayley and Io, Bianca, Rhea Ripley. There's so much you can do. The Rhea, Charlotte, Io revisited from In Your House, if you want to kind of spin that again. But this time it's on the main roster, and this time, like, the stakes are different or whatever. There's so much you can do with Io Shirai now, and hopefully they don't bungle her on the main roster, because she has a lot of potential for sure. Very marketable, great character, great look, great in the ring. I think she's done all she can do in NXT. She held the title for 300 days, so I look forward to seeing her on the main roster probably as early as next week on Raw or SmackDown. So overall, fantastic takeover show. Like I said, I'm usually an AEW guy. I had both open side by side on my computer with the sound mostly turned up on the NXT show and just kind of monitoring AEW to see what was going on. And one of the best takeovers I've ever seen. Like, whenever they decide to put on a big card like this, even like the special NXT shows they have, like New Year's Evil or the Halloween Havoc or Great American Bash or whatever, they usually stack the shows and they're all usually really great. So that's one thing that's always guaranteed in life. The NXT takeovers are going to be fantastic and like the pinnacle of wrestling at that moment in time. So again, really great show. I can't believe there's another one tomorrow. It just seems like cheating almost that they're able to put on these great shows like back to back like this. But Really good show. I recommend checking it out. Watch the Peacock feed. Do not watch the USA feed. Watch it without ads. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the tag match and the Walter match without ads. But really, really good show. I recommend it. Also, I had these up to go over the show, but yeah, Raquel. I also watched AEW Dynamite, and a really good show, really newsworthy show. A lot of things happened on this show. They ran a lot of angles. They set up a lot of stuff. There's been so they. I'm a wrestling Observer guy. I subscribe to the Observer, and I listen to all the shows. I listen to the reviews and stuff. And the hot topic conversation this week is AEW's booking. And I've never thought that AEW's booking has ever really been a problem. I've always thought it's been really good. But they did, I guess, a study last week on the show. And there were... And now, like, what quantifies as, like, a person is... Or like, a featured person is unclear. But there were 62 people featured on last week's AEW Dynamite. And I read another thing tonight that somebody counted, and tonight there were 72 people featured on Dynamite tonight. And the hot topic was, if you have a 2-hour show and you're trying to get over 62 people, it's not going to work. It's too many people. You're not going to remember anything that's going on. And it's like, I get it, but they're not trying to get 62 people over. Like, there were 72 people that appeared on Dynamite tonight that were not all trying to get over. The people were, like, just for example, I'll give you one example. Chris Jericho did a promo and had the Inner Circle behind him. And Jericho did all the talking. Nobody else said a word. And that's 5 people featured. But Jericho was not trying to get the whole 5 over. He was cutting a promo. He was getting over the feud. He was not trying to get over people. If you go by that, the Inner Circle's already over. They came out, the crowd sang Judas. They're complete babyface now. Jericho's like, you guys sound great. It's a total babyface now. So they're not trying to get 5 guys over. They do the Jurassic Express Bear Country match with Marco Stunt. That's 5 guys. They're not trying to get all 5 guys over. They're just trying to have a match. Like, just because a person shows up, it does not mean they're trying to get them over or, like, advance them. There are people... I think of it like entities. Like, there's the Inner Circle, that's one entity, and the Pinnacle, that's another entity. But together, that's 11 people. You're not trying to get 11 people. You're trying to get 2 things over. If the people in the group if the group is over, the people who are in it are going to be over. Like, you can cut your losses. So the opener was Hangman Page versus Max Caster, and Max Caster was accompanied... I'm going to do this just so we can kind of keep track. Max Caster was accompanied by Anthony Bowens. And, once again, TakeOver was on. This is Pete Dunne versus Kushida during this match. So I was more focused on that one than this one, even though I'm a gigantic fan of the Acclaimed and Max Caster. I think they're fantastic wrestlers. I think the gimmick is great. I did not pay very much attention to this match. What I did see was kind of sloppy. Like, they tried to do maybe a little bit too much. Caster had a couple little slip-ups here and there. Like, he tried a couple moves, tried to be a little more athletic than he could actually be on this night. And, nothing was too awful, but there was one spot where Page was on the top rope, Bowens distracted him, and Caster tried, leaping up there in one shot, catching him in a superplex and, knocking him off. But he slipped going up, so he just landed, he landed back on the ground, and just, boom, try it again. Try again, do the spot. But, kind of sloppy match. Again, just getting Hangman wins. He's going to be built up eventually down the line, so just building his coffer. He's the number 1 ranked singles wrestler right now, so he wins with the buckshot lariat. Bowens tries throwing in the boombox. They catch it. Caster hits him with the chain. Page kicks out. Page takes out Bowens with a tope and then hits the buckshot and pins Caster and gets the win. Next up, Tony Schiavone interviews Death Triangle. They announced that the title match against the Young Bucks is next week. I'm wondering how that's going to go because they kind of came off as heels against the Best Friends because the Best Friends came out and interrupted them tonight. But then, based on the main event, the Young Bucks are kind of heels now too, maybe? So is it a heel versus heel match? Are the Death Triangle going to be baby faces next week and then flip back to heels to feud with the Best Friends? I don't know. But anyway, the Best Friends interrupt and they show footage from Revolution last year when Pac faced Orange Cassidy, and then the following weeks afterwards where Ray Phoenix came out of nowhere and kicked Orange Cassidy in the face like super, super hard and like legit injured him. And they had a big feud, and they were supposed to have a big match last year, the Best Friends and the Lucha Brothers in a big street fight, but I guess they pushed that off and then spun that in a different direction and did Best Friends and Santana and Ortiz instead. But they announced that they have business with the Death Triangle and they're gonna come after them soon. So that'll I guess be a feud for Double or Nothing. Next up was Chris Jericho and the Inner Circle. They have a promo. Like I said, Jericho and them came out. The crowd was singing Judas. It was maybe 10 times louder this week than it was any other week. And Jericho, full-on babyface. You guys sound great. Woo! Cuts a totally great promo talking all about MJF. And typical Chris Jericho fashion, he kept saying, my jerk-off friend. MJF, my jerk-off friend. He just kept saying it over and over and over and over and over again. Just, I guess, trying to get it in, trying to get the catchphrase over. Talked about how he let him into the Inner Circle because he knew he was great. He knew he was incredibly talented. He's only 24 years old. And he wanted to take that talent that he had and siphon it off and use it to elevate himself, elevate the Inner Circle, elevate the whole thing. But MJF turned on him and broke out on his own. So now he's going to, take out MJF. And then he went through each member of the Inner Circle, made fun of him, made fun of Shawn Spears' blonde mohawk in 2021. He got the line wrong when he made fun of Wardlow. Said he had $1 million body and a 10-cent brain. But he said $1 million brain and a 10-cent body, which doesn't really make sense. And then he said, we've been waiting for this opportunity for over a year, and we're going to finally do it. So they announced that they're going to do Blood and Guts May 5th on Dynamite. So they're not going to do it at Double or Nothing. They're not going to hold it off till All Out, which is certainly a choice. Like, you would think, and a lot of people talked about this with the Pinnacle Inner Circle feud, you don't want to rush to Blood and Guts, even though that's where this was all going. You could do months of singles and tags and twists and turns along the way, different stipulations, and then the final blow-off is Blood and Guts, but I guess they're going a different direction. Maybe they do Blood and Guts on the 5th and then have some kind of other match, maybe like an elimination match or something at the pay-per-view, and the losing team disbands, and that's why you get rid of the Inner Circle, the Pinnacle can keep going. Maybe that's what we're building to, I'm not sure, but in any event, on Dynamite, on free TV, not on pay-per-view, on free TV, and granted the last one was going to be on free TV too in Newark, but free TV, Blood and Guts, May 5th, should be pretty exciting. Up next, there was a Christian interview. He talked about his match with Kazarian last week and how it took him to his limit, but he knew Frankie was going to push him that hard. He knew that's what they were going to do. And Taz comes up and offers him a spot in Team Taz. So it looks like maybe possibly Christian is going to be either joining or feuding with Team Taz, which is exciting. Him and Brian Cage, him and Ricky Starks, him and Will Hobbs. Get Christian a team of friends to take them on. That could be pretty fun. Next was Jurassic Express versus Bear Country in the Godzilla versus Kong match. They had an interview. They had a video beforehand of highlights of both teams set to like the Godzilla versus Kong trailer. That was really, really cool. Pretty good match. A lot of big exciting moves in this one as well. Bear Country's really good. Jurassic Express is really good. This was another one. I think this was happening during Ciampa and Walter. So this one I wasn't paying much attention to either. Actually, this might have been when I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on with the gauntlet match. Because there were people coming out and I didn't know who was eliminated. But I did catch the finish. The finish happened when Luchasaurus hit a big choke slam and then a standing moonsault on one of the bears. So the dinosaurs win this one. Pretty good match from what I saw though. There was a dive spot where Jungle Boy hit a dive on one bear, he hit a dive on another bear, and then he did this big over the top rope dive onto both of them, and they caught him. But then Luchasaurus hit a big step up dive on both of them and took them both out. So cool spots like that, a lot of big power spots, and yeah, good match. I was also having a lot of streaming issues tonight with AEW. No issues at all with NXT, but a lot of issues with AEW tonight, stopping and starting and all sorts of weird stuff. So I did miss a lot of these due to streaming, buffering, those kind of issues. Next was a QT Marshall promo. He had his faction, Aaron Solo, Nick Comoroto, and Anthony Ogogo. He was shooting all over the place tonight. All of his promos have been super shooty lately in this feud. We're like blurring the lines between kayfabe and reality here. Talked about playing second fiddle to Ted Jr. Talked about just all sorts of stuff. Shooting everywhere. He went through his whole team. He did mention to Aaron Solo, this guy's a great wrestler, and it's, before all anybody could talk about was who he was dating, because he was engaged to Bailey for the longest time, and I think they broke up. But you're throwing that out on TV, and then Anthony Ogogo got a promo, and he's a really good talker. If you haven't seen AEW Dark or watched that, he does stuff on there. He does commentary, and he's really good on commentary on AEW Dark. He really gets it. He understands kind of a different level with the whole striking and everything, because he is a former boxer. So he cut a cool promo, and he's actually going to have his debut next week. So we'll see. He's been training. He was one of the very first signings that Cody ever did back in spring 2019 when they first formed AEW. He was one of the first guys they signed for a developmental program. So we'll see. He's been cooking for 2 years. Let's see what comes out of the pot next week. And before they finish the promo, Comoroto takes a thing of paint and throws it on the wall where there's a Nightmare Factory logo, which is weird because it's QT Marshall's school, so why is he throwing it on the logo? And apparently the faction is called the Factory. So, there you go. A lot of shooting in this promo. Stop me if you've heard this one. Sting cuts a promo and is interrupted. Jake the Snake comes out. Archer comes out to interrupt, and Archer's saying he deserves the spotlight. He's going to take the spotlight. Jake even makes a joke like, this happens to you a lot, doesn't it, Sting? But Sting says that he wants Archer to take that energy and channel into being a main event talent, and he wants him to succeed. So I don't know if they're going to do some kind of pairing between the two of them, if they're building to a match, if they're going to be friends. I'm not sure what's going on with this yet. AEW TNT Championship, Darby Allin versus JD Drake. This was during the Walter versus Ciampa match, so I did miss a lot of this, which is really sad because I love both of these guys. I'm a big JD Drake fan because I used to watch a lot of Evolve, and Drake was he was either the Evolve champion or the WWN champion, and he had a ton of really great matches. He was in a tag team with Anthony Henry called the Workhorsemen in Evolve, and they were a fantastic team because he was the big bruiser, the big hard-hitting bruiser, and Henry was the small MMA guy, and they were a really great team together. And then he had matches with Keith Lee and had matches with Matt Riddle that were great and awesome. He's a big dude, but he can do a moonsault. He can move. He can jump. He can brawl. He can wrestle. JD Drake's really, really good. Unfortunately, he does not have the best physique, so he got the Keith Lee singlet tonight that covers his belly. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent thing or if that's just because he's on TNT and not Dark. But like on Dark, he did not. His belly was out for everybody, but tonight they put him in a singlet. So still a really good match. Ryan Nemeth was out there, and Sting chased him and Cesar Bononi off with with his baseball bat. And then after that, no interference, no shenanigans, no nothing, just a straight wrestling match. Drake had a lot of big power spots. He had a lot of big dive spots showing his athleticism, showing his power. And eventually, Darby hits a code red off the middle rope and then a coffin drop and pins JD Drake. So, from what I saw of it, it was a really good match. Both guys looked really good. Drake is more than accustomed to working that crazy high flying style. They were both in Evolve at the same time as well. So, I'm sure they've mixed up. I'm sure they have chemistry. I'm sure they're used to working together. So really, really good match. I'm probably going to go back and check that one out too afterwards. And then after the match, the Matt Hardy office, the Butcher and the Blade and Private Party, they come out. They beat up Darby. The Bunny goes to clear off the announce table while she turns to yell at the announcers. The Dark Order comes out. They run off all the guys. Bunny turns around. None of her people are there. Ty runs out and tackles her, and they fight. And they go to commercial. Backstage, Jericho's doing an interview with Marvez, but he's jumped by the Pinnacle. They throw him out to the ring. They beat him up. 5-on-1, 6-on-1. They give him a stuffed pile driver, and they're going to powerbomb him through the table. Up on the big screen, they flash up the backstage, and the Inner Circle was barricaded in their locker room, apparently. The door was, like, barricaded shut. And they're getting ready to powerbomb. They have a table set up outside the ring, and Wardlow's going to throw him from inside the ring to outside the ring. But Mike Tyson, of all people, he was advertised for Dynamite. He comes out to even the odds, I suppose, and they all bail, but Shawn Spears is the only guy in the ring. Tyson rips his shirt off, tackles Spears, starts laying in all these punches. I can't tell if they were good punches or bad punches. He was just throwing a bunch of punches, and eventually they pull Spears out of the ring before Tyson can kill him for real, apparently. And then the Inner Circle, they bust out, they run down to the ring and chase off the Pinnacle. So, then Jericho and Tyson, who were going to feud, they stare each other down and then shake hands and hug. So, I guess Tyson buried the hatchet with Jericho. He's helping the Inner Circle now. Pretty cool angle. It was kind of cool. Tyson's in great shape. He ripped his shirt off and was shredded for a guy his age. So, really cool little angle here. And, I always like the beat down where the heels outsmart the baby faces, and it's not like the baby faces look stupid. Like they like nailed the door shut or whatever. Like just, shenanigans like that. I love that stuff. Last year when Jericho was feuding with Cody, and they had they were heckling Cody all night from the balcony, and Cody goes up to kick his ass and gets his crew of guys to go with him, and they close the door and they lock the door to the suite. So then Cody takes takes a scarf and punches the door out, rips the door open, and they all brawl up in the concourse. Little stuff like that I love. It's just classic. Next up is a really weird promo. This is the kind of thing that people nitpick and I get mad at because it's like, you're clearly nitpicking. But I'm going to nitpick this one a little bit. So, Britt Baker and Rebel do an interview with Tony Schiavone, and they say, we have an announcement / news. They say that Britt is going to show up on Dark and Dark Elevation and Dynamite and wrestle and try to get as many wins as she possibly can get, because currently she's ranked number 4 in the women's rankings, because it's all based off of wins and losses. And she's like, wins and losses should not determine who gets a title shot. It's like, yes, it should. It definitely should. So she says she's going to try to appear on as many shows as she can, wrestle as much as she can, and get as many wins as she can so she climbs the rankings. I really didn't like her kind of discrediting the ranking system, and how she's saying, like, I'm going to game the system by just winning as many times as I can. But, it is what it is. I do think the end game should be her and Sheeta. So her winning Her getting wins is totally fine with me, because if that means she gets a title match, that's even better. So, yeah, I'm cool with that. Next up was Ty Conti versus the Bunny. Again, I did not watch much of this match because this was the tag match and the start of the women's match. And Ty hits it, and this was another one I had buffering issues, so I was watching it, and then it cut out, and then I refreshed it, and Ty was getting her hand raised. So apparently she hit the Hammerlock DDT and beat the Bunny. Next week, Darby Allin versus Matt Hardy. Falls count anywhere for the TNT Championship. That should be pretty crazy. The Young Bucks versus Pac and Rey Fenix for the tag titles. Anthony Ogogo makes his debut. Jade Cargill takes on Red Velvet, continuing their feud. And Chris Jericho versus Dax Harwood. Pinnacle and Inner Circle both banned from ringside. And Mike Tyson is going to be the special guest enforcer. So, really stacked show next week. 2 big title matches. A lot of good wrestling slated for next week. A lot of feuds kind of coming to a head as we're about 6 weeks away from Double or Nothing. So, we're going to start, that ball rolling down that hill and figuring out what matches we're going to get there. Main event was Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers versus Jon Moxley and the Young Bucks. Good match. A lot of back and forth. All these 6-mans they've done over the last several weeks have been really, really good. But this was more story-based, given that the Bucks kind of are conflicting with Omega and the Good Brothers. And it's a little weird because they've done a couple spots. Like, it's a rehashing of the feud they did a couple years ago with Omega versus the Bucks, where they don't get along and they fight and stuff. Omega did... he was in a position at one point where Matt was in the ring and he could super kick him, but Matt, went to super kick him and couldn't, and kind of hesitated. Then Omega slapped him, so he took down Omega, started punching him and stuff. Eventually, they get Omega cornered on the outside. They take out the Good Brothers. They're gone. They have Omega dead to rights in the middle of the ring, ready for the BTE trigger, but Matt can't do it. And so he's like, okay, I can do it. And he grabs him again. He's getting ready to do it, and he can't do it. So Moxley, he's on the apron the whole time. He's telling him, hit him, hit him, hit him. Matt can't do it, so Moxley tags himself in, jumps in the ring, paradigm shifts Omega, picks him up, gives him another paradigm shift. Omega's a corpse at this point. He puts Omega in the choke, and then flips him out, goes for another one, but finally they double super kick Moxley, and then the Good Brothers come back in the ring. They hit the Magic Killer on Moxley and then throw Omega over top of him, and the Omega and the Good Brothers win. And the whole time after they super kicked Moxley, the Young Bucks were just like statues in the ring. They just stood there. They didn't help. They didn't celebrate. They were just like, we didn't want to do this. We didn't want to become this, but we're here now. So, very strange. And then afterwards, they pick up Moxley, and they're holding him, and the Bucks hit a double super kick on him, which felt really strange. Because they still didn't. When they did the angle a couple months ago, when the Good Brothers came in, and Omega and the Good Brothers did the Too Sweet, and then the Bucks, they super kicked somebody, and they did the Too Sweet with them. And everybody's like, oh my god, Bullet Club, they're reforming. Then they just dropped it, and now they're back to it. I don't really know what's going on, because they just pretty much did the same thing, and now they're back to it again. And instead of doing the Too Sweet at the end, they threw it up, and the Bucks were like, no, we're not going to do that. But then they did the curtain call hug, and they all brought it in for a big hug, which I guess maybe was a shout out to the NWO, who just got put in the Hall of Fame. But it's strange. I don't know where they're going. I don't know what's going on with the Bucks. Are they heels again? Are they baby faces? They're facing the Death Triangle, who I think are heels, maybe. Rey Fenix is a baby face, but Pac is a heel and Penta's a heel. I don't know what's happening. I don't really get it. I'm sure we're gonna learn more next week. I'm sure we'll learn more on BTE, but this one kind of has me scratching my head. I don't really understand what's happening, how we got here, why we got here. I don't really get it. But person in the chat says, I guess they'll have Moxley cost the Bucks their titles next week. You could do that, and then maybe do Bucks versus Kingston and Moxley at the pay-per-view, and then do Omega versus Christian Cage or something. Maybe Moxley and Kingston are going to be Christian's buddies when he faces Team Taz eventually. We'll see. I could definitely see that there next week. He costs them the titles, and then they do something at the pay-per-view. That could be pretty crazy if they do like a big hardcore match. Moxley and Moxley and Kingston versus the Young Bucks. Go PWG Guerrilla Warfare at Double or Nothing. That could be really, really fun, I think. I would like that a lot. So, that was AEW Dynamite. Again, like I said, I kind of tertiarily followed it while I watched TakeOver, but solid show as always. I think next week, both shows are separated, so both shows should go up in viewership. Both shows are probably going to be pretty stacked next week with the TakeOver Fallout, plus a really loaded Dynamite show with 2 title matches, Jade Cargill versus Red Velvet, which they've been building up forever, Jericho versus Dax Harwood sounds really great, and Anthony Ogogo making a debut. So a lot to look forward to next week for AEW. And then plus we're building to Blood and Guts on May 5th and Double or Nothing on May 30th. So big month coming up for AEW. As for me, though, I am dead exhausted. Tomorrow is day 5. Once again, another incredibly busy day. I probably will not watch Impact, but I am going to be watching NXT UK Prelude. I am going to be watching TakeOver Night 2 tomorrow night, which has Johnny Gargano versus Bronson Reed, Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon versus Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell for the NXT Women's Tag Team titles. A ladder match for the Unified Cruiserweight Championship, Santos Escobar and Jordan Devlin. An unsanctioned match between Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. And then the NXT Championship, Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross. Should be a really good show tomorrow night as well. And NXT Prelude has Mako Satomura and Millie McKenzie versus Kaylee Ray and Isla Dawn. A British rounds match between Tyler Bate and Noam Dar. And then the NXT UK Championship, it might be over tomorrow, Walter versus Rampage Brown. So, big show on NXT UK as well. So, yeah, more stuff tomorrow. Around the same time, I'll be back live again, talking these 2 shows, previewing SmackDown. Friday night, I'll be back with SmackDown New Japan Strong, previewing WrestleMania, and this keeps on rolling along. Let me know what you think. Comment below. Do you think any match is going to beat Walter versus Ciampa this weekend? Let me know in the comments. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I'm dead exhausted. I hope you enjoyed the night of wrestling. Please check out these 2 shows. They were both really, really fun. And I'll see you guys same time tomorrow night.